Hello, this is Fat Mystic Wizard, aka Andrew, coming out here with the True Draco deck profile. In my opinion, True Draco is one of the better decks of this format because it didn't really lose any of its consistency cards and still has all of its powerful floodgates for the most part. Yeah, they lost Masterpiece, but in my opinion, that was actually better for the deck as it got better support back. And in my opinion, Masterpiece was just a crutch or an auto-win card that should not have been in the game at all. Shoutouts to my friend Weasel201, aka Josh, for loaning me the True Draco deck core. And yeah, so let's get into the deck profile. We got one Dynamite Fighter that recently came back to 1. This is the one that allows you to activate a trap or to the field directly or add it to your hand when your opponent would activate a spell or activate a card effect. This card is really good, but honestly, I don't think it's as good as the other card I'm about to mention, but this is still a very powerful card. With Diagram, it's at 2800, which should be able to beat over most cards in the current game right now. But in my opinion, the best thing that Konami did was put Ignis Heat at 3 from 1. Ignis Heat is more important in my opinion because it searches out your heritage and your disciples, your recyclability and your consistency. I really like this card. In fact, more often than not, I prefer to go into this first than Dynamite Fighter, just for the sheer fact that I need to keep the consistency going. While Dynamite Fighter does give me ways to keep my opponents in check, I prefer being able to get my consistency to draw into the Dynamite Fighter rather than search it. So I prefer to search this over Dynamite Fighter, so yeah. And for those that don't know, this actually got first at the Indianapolis Regional this past weekend, and it also got 4th, I do believe. So yeah, it got 2 out of the top 4 spots, so going to show that the deck is far from dead. Next, we have 2 Majesty Maidens. With Masterpiece Con, I feel like running 3 of her has become inferior in my opinion. Not that she says a bad card, she is still really good. I just feel like 3 is not necessary. So, yeah, 2 Majesty Maidens. Next, we have 2 Amano Awados. With Pendulum Magicians being almost basically extinct, I feel like that this card isn't as necessary. While yes, it still stops like Nightmare Boards to an extent, I still think that 2 is just fine. A lot of times when I played it in Louisville back in March, I would brick with multiples of this and would not be able to use card demises effectively, so I think 2 is a really good number. But don't underestimate the power of this card. This card is still really good, because basically why it's on the field, only effects that can activate are Spirit Monster effects. Who's playing Spirits? So yeah, really, really good. And if they decide to negate this and it doesn't return to hand, they have to deal with that until they can get rid of it themselves. So, really good. Now, probably the most controversial card I put on this list is 1 Metaltron. Now, while yes, I do understand it's a resource eater, I do believe having one of it just as a backup if you actually need it is important. There are certain matchups that if I get this out, they are basically going to auto-lose because they'll have no way out to it outside of a Kaiju, which, in my opinion, have actually slowly been falling out of favor in terms for the more raw spear mode because of Nightmare Boards. Not that I'm saying there isn't Kaijus out there, I just think with Kaijus less relevant, this becomes better. Also, against certain decks like Ultrageist and Gokis, if you get the right 2 cards, they just can't play. So, honestly, really, really okay. Not the best like Masterpiece, but still a decent one of. Plus, worst case scenario, you don't have to summon this. He's fodder for all kinds of cards like Dragonic Diagram and stuff. So, I'm just teching him, but I'm really liking the 1 copy for the moment being. Now, for my little secret juicy tech that I really have fallen in love with in this deck is 2 Mana Dragon Zernatrons. Now, what this card does is when a spell or trap you control will leave the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon this from your hand or graveyard. And if you do, you select 1 banished spell or trap or 1 in your graveyard and set it to your side of the field. If you do special it this way, banish it when it leaves the field. This card is extremely good in this deck for so many reasons. It can bring back Diagram, Card of Demise if you need more draw. It can bring back Heritage, Disciples, your Floodgates, Apocalypse. It just brings back so much. And the fact that it can activate from graveyard means it's not affected by Card of Demise. Crap, this is actually a good thing to pop off with Dragonic Diagram. So yeah, I'm really liking this card. One of my favorite cards from Saiho, actually, and it's not let me down so far. So 2 Mana Dragon Zernatrons. Next we have, we have 3 copies of Dragonic Diagram and 3 more copies of Dragonic Diagram, aka Terraformings. Dragonic Diagram is surprisingly dodged the list because the OCG banned both Diagram and Masterpiece, but leaving Dragonic Diagram at 3 in the TCG has proven to be really good because it gives a lot of decks life. It's one of the better cards in the deck, and in fact, in my opinion, had this been put anything below 3, it probably would have killed the deck anyway, so sorry for the double probably. Anywho, it gives all your True Dracos and True Kings battle immunity once per turn each, gives them 300 attack points, and its interaction with quick play spells are some of the stupidest in the game. So what you do is you activate Diagram, put in your spell. Let's say you go to activate Cosmic Cyclone. You would activate Dragonic Diagram first, use its effect, attempt to pop. But since the pop is not a cost, you can chain a quick play spell from here, like I said, Cosmic Cyclone, banish, and then use Diagram to pop the Cyclone you just used to get your search. So maximize as much as you can get. So yeah, 3 Diagrams and 3 Terraformings. Next we have 3 True Draco Heritage. What this card does is that once per turn, for each type of True Draco card or King card sent from the field to the graveyard, monster, spell, or trap, you can draw up to 1 card for each type sent that turn, for up to a draw 3. So also it gives you additional normal summons and allows you to destroy your opponent's spells and trap when it leaves the field. So yeah, and with Ignis Heat back at 3, this just became more searchable. So 3 of that. Next we have 3 Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix. This card, what it allows you to do is, it's basically a Daigotsu Emerald. What it does is you shuffle 3 True Draco or True King cards back into your deck, and if you do, draw 1 card. Also, it has the unique effect to allow you to get an additional normal summon of a True Draco, and it also pops a spell or trap when it leaves the field. For those that don't know, and you're just getting new to this deck, you can use True Draco Heritage's normal summon effect and Phoenix's in the same turn, plus your additional normal summons. So having up to 3 normal summons in this deck is really, really good. So 3 Disciples. Now for probably the stupidest card that makes this deck work, and it's one of the dumbest cards ever, in my opinion, but I love it, and it's 3 Card of Demise. Now what Card of Demise does is you draw until you're holding 3 cards in your hand. Also, for the rest of the turn, your opponent takes no damage, sorry. Also, at the end of your turn, you discard your entire hand, and you cannot special summon off the turn you use this card. You can activate 1 per turn. What's really neat about this card is you can, let's say you have a board of a couple True Draco monsters, you can go battle phase, attack, and then main phase 2, dump Card of Demise, so you get a +3, and you did a decent amount of damage. This card is probably single-handedly one of the few reasons this deck is still as consistent as it is, because just the ability to draw 3 just for no reason is really good and stupid. Also, the fact that the deck doesn't special summon doesn't hurt either. So yeah, 3 Card of Demise. So pretty. Next, you have 3 Pot of Dualities. Just more consistency. Reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 to your hand, shuffle the rest back in the deck. Can't special summon for the rest of the turn, and you activate 1 per turn. So yeah, just a more consistency card, and since you don't special summon, you're not hit by the drawback. Outside of Zernatron, but he's not a necessary card to go off. So next, we have for our traps 3 True Draco Apocalypse. This card has the effect that when it leaves the field, it destroys an opponent's monster that is not activated, so it can't be negated by the effects of like Vortex Dragon and stuff like that. Or Trigate Wizard, as far as I know. But anywho, also you can destroy 1 of the True Draco or 2 King cards you control on the field to cut all monsters your opponent's attack and defense they currently control in half permanently. That is just really good. Also, it has the effect that during your opponent's turn, you can use the effect like the spells to get a normal summon during your opponent's turn. So, being able to tribute these spells and traps during your opponent's turn to pop their resources is really, really good. Next, we have 1 True King's Return. I don't play the Reaper engine. I don't feel like it's absolutely necessary. This deck can outgrind pretty much almost any extra deck-based deck, in my opinion. But it's an extra name, it has popping, and sometimes that Graveyard Revival effect does come in use to bring back a monster, so you can pop it with Diagram. So yeah, I'd still play 1 of this. For our Floodgates, we have 2 Rivalry of the Warlords and 2 Gods and Match. True Draco is one of those decks that are always going to play Floodgates based on what the meta is, because you contribute the Floodgates off to summon your monsters, or pop them with Diagrams. So there's no floodgate in this deck that truly hurts you because you just pop it away at will. In my opinion, this deck is right now needing to play Gauss and Match and Rivalry because of decks like Gokis, Sky Strikers, and Invoked Engines. All decks that require different attributes and different types. But obviously the floodgate you would play changes based on the format you're in. Like if we go back to a Pendulum format, you'd main anti-spell. If we go back to a heavy monster effect board, we go to Monarch's Erupt. So this is always subject to change depending on what format we're in. Next, another favorite tech that I learned from the winner of the the Indie Regional is 2 Waterfall Dragon Souls. Now, I was wanting to test this around back in March, but I didn't realize why this card was so good. It's not the fact of the Worm Searcher, which does have its uses at times when you need to get that one Majesty or Ignis. But the reason I like it is its second effect. When your opponent will go to evenly match, let's say you have 3 monsters on board. They go to even match, you flip this up, send them off, and then draw 4. Because its second effect is you can send any number of Worm-type monsters from your hand or field to the graveyard and draw that many +1. So it dodges evenly match so you don't lose all your monsters. As you evenly match can easily destroy this deck and dismantle and kill you. Especially if they get too many monsters. So yeah, evenly matched killer. Really, really good. And I love this card in here. And then the 1 skill drain. Just because you don't want your opponent to play. Some other things I was toying around with were multi-roll. I'm still debating on it. I'm not sure how I like it because it doesn't negate Ogres on the field spell. It also does not negate Droll, but it prevents my cards from being ashed or ghost-spelled or whatever. I also like the fact that it's a continuous spell for fodder for Masterpiece. Because multi-roll's effect is you can send 1 card you control to the graveyard to make it to where your opponent cannot activate any cards in response to your spell cards. So makes it to where your card demises can't be asked, which is really good. So, yeah. Also, another thing I was toying around with Ledger of Ledgermane, which was a secret in Cybernetic Horizon to banish the top 3 cards of your deck at the end of face down, and at the end of 3, that's your 3rd standby phase, you add them to your hand. While it was cute, it didn't really advance my plays as much, so I ended up dropping it. I love that the creativity of this deck is so good. There are so many different techs you can play. And with Masterpiece gone, I actually love this deck a lot more than it is with Masterpiece. So I will be playing this at YCS Columbus. And yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts and opinions on the deck? Post in the comments below what you think. This is Fat Mystic Wizard signing out. I will see you later.